Okay, now that I've definitely fixed the issue. Sorry about that, guys. I did a little bit of yapping because I thought everything was working. I should have trusted my instincts when I was looking at Streamlabs here. So I'm going to redo that a little bit of that intro here. So currently we're actually through 18 flight level 180 now. So we'll switch over to standard pressure. You can tell it's been a while since I've streamed. So welcome to Flight Sim, everyone. This is Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. I've had this actually since the game has launched. I only have the basic variant of it. I'm going to be moving over to 2024 when that comes out later this year. What we're doing right now, this is the first, as you can tell from the title, this is the first leg of a hub tour for the Delta Airlines. Today we're flying the PMDG 737-800. We are using its full capabilities. We are using the SimBrief integration, because I do use SimBrief to generate flights. We are on VATSIM. We didn't get to hear, unfortunately, my callouts from Atlanta. I'm not expecting ATC just due to the time, with it being almost 3 a.m. on the east coast of the United States. Just unfortunate, my schedule does not allow me to stream usually before about 11 at night. We will probably get some ATC at points on this. I'll probably be doing this particular tour on Tuesdays and Sundays. Although Tuesdays may also get slightly longer flights whenever I do fly on Tuesdays. Reasons for that: those Tuesdays are actually the days I do not work. I do typically work until about 11 p.m. Eastern Time, and that is my local time zone. As a result, I do not have an opportunity to live stream prior to about 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, as I had been mentioning before, I fixed the audio issue in Streamlabs. This flight, it's going to be, as you can see at the bottom, thanks to Atlanta. We're going from Atlanta, Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, the busiest airport in the world, to Kennedy in New York. It's about an hour and a half flight. We are currently on our climb. Our cruising altitude will be flight level 350. As we currently go through the Phil 3 departure from Atlanta. Now, a few things you will begin to notice here. I do have, as you might be able to notice in the top left, we do have G's enabled, so we will see just how good or bad of a landing I get. Hopefully it's not anything like the landing I had last night in Seattle, which was utter dog shit. But we will be hand flying the landing using our HUD, which I had set up just before the stream on this particular airframe. I also do have the time not set to real time currently, otherwise it would be completely pitch black outside. The reason for this is I'm going to hopefully get us a nice twilight landing at JFK. Because I don't expect any ATC at JFK. Let's actually look. I'm actually looking at VATSPY now. I do not actually have a good way to get this here. Oh my word, did it not reconnect me? No, it did not. Let's reconnect to VATSIM. There we go. Problem solved. I did actually have my router restart a few moments ago. That's why you might have noticed the stream break up like that. I also completely lost VATSIM, or VPilot at that point. I have reconnected VPilot now, so we are back into ATC, well, not ATC, but we are back onto VATSIM network. Now, I'm going to go bring back Navigraph for the moment. As I said, I do use Navigraph products. I do have a Navigraph subscription for the charts here. Let's get this out of here. So we are flying. This is going to be our actual flight here today. If we bring on the moving map feature, we actually can see we're about to go through Molson. to the Hartwell transition onto our actual flight today. Expecting touchdown. Okay, touchdown will probably be around 4 o'clock Eastern time. Be a little late for what I want to do, or a little late for what I'm hoping, but we'll be fine. And unless ATC does come on in New York, which is that I do not expect New York to come online as of right now, we will be doing the runway 31 arrival, using the Cameron for arrival. So we're just going to sit back, relax for a little bit here. We do have a little bit more climb to do. We've got a little under 10,000, or a little under 9,000 feet at this point left to climb. And I actually almost want to compare this to the 777 flight I did. It looks about the same, actually. Things we're using I'm talking two different AirAC cycles between that 777 flight from Atlanta to Kennedy. It's a very similar duration, although I think the 777 ends up with a much, much higher cost index. 777's a beautiful airframe as well. Another PMG-G product. What you can expect to see a lot of when I do stream this here will be probably the PMDG 737s, both the 800 and the 900, mostly the 900ER. This particular airframe I'll show it in a minute again. As well as the 777 from PMDG. I do also have a 717. I love that beautiful little plane. Those will probably be the big four currently. I'm not expecting to get any more aircraft for the sim, just again due to the fact that we're talking about the next sim, 2024, actually coming out in November. So we're only a couple months away. We'll probably be doing this tour through both sims, just due to the proximity to 2024 coming out. So this tour, as I said, actually I didn't say how many legs. Oh geez, as I tab out in order to grab up my... I hate it when I accidentally bring down the jump seat when tabbing out. So this tour, I do already have fully planned out. We're going through all the Delta hubs, as well as all of the Delta focus cities. I was trying to think of the name. Starting with Atlanta, this airframe is based out of Atlanta. We will not be doing a return leg until the end of the tour. First leg here is going to be Atlanta to JFK. But the airports we'll be going to we have Atlanta, Hartsfield, Jackson, Detroit, Wayne Metropolitan, Kennedy, and LaGuardia. We'll be doing both airports, not just one. We also have Boston, LAX, Minneapolis, Salt Lake City, Seattle, Tacoma, Austin, Cincinnati, and Raleigh. And I will be doing this with fairly short legs. Probably expect most of these flights to be about 1 or 2 hours long. We are not going to be doing the kind of crazy short flight between Kennedy and LaGuardia. I elected not to do that. We will instead be going to Raleigh after Kennedy. That way we can get back into LaGuardia. We're also not going to do the somewhat short flight from LaGuardia to Boston. We will actually be going to, I believe I'm planning Cincinnati after that. This is one of those with how condensed a lot of these airports are on the East Coast. We're just going to hop and skip around a little bit on the East Coast. Most of the rest of it will probably be a fairly straightforward loop around the nation. Delta, being a United States-based airline, these flights will be all in the United States. These will all be domestic flights for this tour. probably do a few other flights in between as well on different streams. When those happen, I cannot say 100% for sure, but they will all likely happen late at night. Some of those will probably be with real time on. Currently, we do have real world weather on. I should actually work on grabbing the Kennedy altimeter. We are still expecting that 3-1 right. For landing, we will import our current weight. We will be doing auto brakes 3, flaps 40. We will have operational thrust reversers. And our pressure will be 3009er as of right now. I like presetting a lot of this stuff. That way we do not have to worry about this stuff later. It's like we already have our minimums set. We already have ILS set. That stuff is all ready to go. Now, as for scenery on this tour, that may end up in flux. As much as I'm not planning to buy a lot of airframes for the sim, I may buy a few more sceneries, or otherwise find sceneries that can be used. We will be, I believe there will be handcrafted scenery at JFK, or at Kennedy, because I do believe that's a part of the base game, thanks to Asobo and Microsoft. So that should be a handcrafted scenery. We will be heading to Terminal 4 today once we land. I have yet to actually figure out the gate. I'll have to look at what gates are possible. The other thing with sceneries, Atlanta, that was the default scenery. I do have sceneries already for 3 airports on this. First one will be Detroit, then it will be Salt Lake, and then it will be Seattle-Tacoma. Those ones I do have functioning scenery for, or actually handcrafted scenery for them. That is that those will be later in the tour. Now, why we're doing this, I'm calling this more of a tour and not using this airframe for much else. This is the Flight Sim TO conceptual Delta 737-800 with the split scimitar winglets. Can be found on Flight Sim TO. It gets a lot of mixed feelings. It's one of those love it or hate it liveries. I like it for the idea of doing like a tour from the hub to hub. Since this is more of like a test airframe. This is not definitely one I'll be using for a lot of mainline flights. I might eventually take it for some international trips, but they'll be much shorter since this is a 737-800. And while we are using the split scimitar winglets today, this is not going to be it. This is quite clearly not a 737 MAX of any kind. Delta does not currently operate those. And you can also tell by the engine cowlings, these are the old CFMs, not the LEAPs. The LEAP engines would have the jagged exhaust on the cowling, as well as the split scimitars. We're going to come back inside with how loud it is outside. And I'm going to take another look at VATSIM, see if there's any traffic nearby. So we actually have reached cruising altitude. I'm going to actually have VATSIM up on my other monitor for now. There is a A320 off our 1 o'clock. It may not be visible yet. It is at flight level 360. Alright, so, since we are at cruise at this point, we have a ways to go. We still are 500 nautical miles from Kennedy. I'm actually, while I'm waiting here, I'm actually going to look up the star and make sure it's got the correct information in the FMC. So we start at Sea Isle. There's Sea Isle, but Boton. Hogs is not correct. FL 180. And then Cameron is... No, not under 11,000. We are supposed to pass through that at 11,000 feet. It's one of those that you have to keep an eye out sometimes with, even with the pre-programmed computer. It should have the correct information for altitude restrictions, as well as the speed restrictions. I'm not too concerned about speed restrictions because there's only one on the star, and I will be manually controlling the speed through our approach. Top of descent is nearly 320 miles out. So we still have a ways to go before we worry about that. And I have a contrail from Juliet Sierra Tango 776. For the A320. It's barely visible up ahead. I can't even see their plane up ahead just due to the lighting, but I can see their con. They're not going to be a factor. They're at flight level 360. They're flying from Boston to Orlando. So I'm not concerned about them. Not a lot of traffic tonight up in New York. I'm looking at the VATSIM map. We currently behind us have a Delta 767 flying from New Orleans, interesting, to Halifax. Interesting one. You could do that with a 7.3, but the 7.6 is a decent plane for that. You also have a 767 going from Fort Lauderdale to Dulles. I'd have to double check if Delta even does those. And this is going to be VATSIM traffic only. Those are the guys up ahead. We also have that aforementioned A320. At JFK, we're, I believe, actually the first one in sequence to arrive. Yeah, we'll be the first ones in sequence to arrive. There is what? Okay, that's a weird one for a Delta. Paris Charles de Gaulle to Keflavik. I'm not going to question it too much, though. Some people do some fun flights like that. There is one in Europe heading to JFK, but I'm not having any luck finding them on the map. Well, it may still even be on the ground. I can't actually tell. No, I'm not having any luck finding them on the map yet. Regardless, they're not going to be a factor. There are some domestic flights inbound as well. Primarily they're out west still. We got a lot 621. It's a 737-800 out of San Diego. And who else? There was one more. Air France 36. They're out of San Diego as well, heading to Kennedy. That's an A320. So yeah, we do have a little bit of traffic, but they're a ways out. They will not be a factor tonight. So since we are on VATSIM, we will be sitting through a lot of this flight. So what I plan to do, since I do have a lot of time here, and it's been a while since I've actually streamed or even done anything on either YouTube or Twitch. Well, is that I'm planning to do this a lot. This particular airframe will only be flown on stream. It will be, as I already mentioned, the airports that we'll be flying between. There will be 12 airports. Last leg will be to Atlanta, likely coming from the west coast. I do have them all planned out. I'm not going to give the full order just yet here, but it will become kind of obvious how I'm planning to go through this once we get past the chaos of the East Coast. Now, I also mentioned the other airframes, the 737-900, the 777, and 717. I also have an A330neo, but those will also get used for some flights. There will be some flights, including some actual, probably some transatlantics on Tuesdays occasionally. Just, I have not done a transatlantic yet. I'm not ready to stream that. I'm also not ready to do one with actual ATC just yet. Probably do a couple of flights with a 73 and one with a 777 on VATSIM as an observer. So probably do one out west. I'll probably set up another 900 ER with ETOPS, that or even a 777. I'll have to see what Honolulu is capable of. I believe it's Honolulu that Delta goes into. If they're capable of handling the 777, I'll probably just do the 777 for the hell of it. As you can tell from the bottom of the screen, I am using Volanta here. This will be tracking flights. I do use it to track where my aircraft are. I will have to get a screenshot of this airframe for Volanta. Now, the aircraft I do have fully laid out in Volanta. I do have a couple 777s, as well as a few 737-900s, and some 737-800s. Currently, I don't have... So currently I've got a 777 in Minneapolis. And easily you can expect some of these to be used eventually on stream. Got a 737-900ER in Seattle. I have two 737s there. Got a 777 currently in Detroit. Another 737-800 in, I believe that one's in LaGuardia. That one's in LaGuardia. Another 800 in Seattle, not LaGuardia. Another 800, this one is at Kennedy. (737-900) or another 800. That one's actually I need to update. That one's in Atlanta. It's just not going to connect properly because it had some weird shenanigans mid-flight. I have another 737-900ER currently at Detroit. I know I have another one that's just going to be, that I've not flown yet, that will be in Detroit. This 737-800 is not anything we're going to worry too much about. And then I have another 900ER currently in Milwaukee. I do have another Delta airframe for the 777. What's kind of funny is a lot of this, I will try to do a lot of this fairly realistically, which is kind of funny that I'm using Delta for the 777 primarily. I'll give a little bit of disclosure to why we'll do a lot of flights with Delta rather than other airlines. There will definitely be some occasionally using things like Qantas or Ryanair, among others. There will be some other American airlines from America here as well, but for the most part it will be Delta, for a very good reason. But as to the 777, Delta did actually operate the 777-200s for a brief period. That ended in 2020 due to a certain, shall we say, crisis. I'm going to be a little bit tight-lipped just due to the platforms. When it was retired from service in 2020 due to that situation. It's a beautiful airframe. The problem is that I do use the PMDG 777. PMDG only has one variant currently, and that's 300ER. Delta never flew the 300ER and does not currently have orders for it, so they will likely never fly it. Yet I will be flying it as the 300ER for Delta. Don't worry too much about that random tilt up. I do have some drinks here. Luckily, let's just make the FAA happy. If we really were dealing with the FAA, nothing alcoholic. So we currently are 400 nautical miles out. Now, I did mention I would say why I'll be flying a lot of Delta flights. I don't do a lot of flying in reality, IRL. I've never actually piloted a plane. I have flown a few times. The only airline that I personally know for sure that I've flown with is Delta. I have actually flown from Atlanta to Detroit on a 717, and I've also flown from, last time I flew was actually Dallas-Fort Worth to Detroit on an A320. So that's why you'll see a lot of these Delta flights. They've done really, really good by me. I'm really impressed with what Delta does. There's a good reason you'll see a lot of that. I also like to keep things rather professional and realistic as well. So I'm going to grab up CTAF for Kennedy, just so I have it ready as well. 11901. Oh, perfect. I don't even have to change it. I forgot, this is a really nice flight because the CTAF for both Atlanta and Kennedy is 11901. So all I'm going to have to do when we do arrive at Kennedy is hit that button technically. I'm also going to hit this guy down here, that VHF2. The reason I do both of those, for now, since I'm just kind of bobbing my head around, we will disable track IR. But the reason I do both of those here is because there's a lot of... So CTAF, I might as well mention what both these are. So 122.8, that is the Unicom frequency. If you're in uncontrolled airspace anywhere in the world, you monitor Unicom. In the United States, at least in the United States, 122.8 is your Unicom frequency. I don't have the exact things because I've only so far done United States flights. In the United States, that's 122.8. Other nations, it might be different. Similarly, squawk codes for VFR are different, but in different nations. But we're not worrying about that because most of these flights that I'll be doing are going to be IFR. Now, CTAF, this is the Common Traffic Advisory Frequency. If you're within 10 nautical miles of an airport and actually going to have impacts on that airport's traffic, you do need to make calls on CTAF. This is typically the main tower frequency. For tower, this is the actual tower level controller. So, like, when we started earlier, I actually did do a call out in Atlanta when I originally did pushback that Delta 801 was pushing back at gate, I don't remember the exact gate, I had to look that up as well, facing south. And basically what that call would sound like is, and I'm not going to be making any call outs currently, would be Atlanta traffic, Delta 801 pushing back at gate, insert gate number, facing south, Atlanta. That way anyone can look up, hey, this is that gate number on Navigraph. That's where they're at. They're going to be facing south. I need to keep that in mind because they will be impacting traffic there. Similarly, after that, and when I was ready for taxi, it was Atlanta traffic, Delta 801 taxiing the runway 9er left via, I think it was Lima Mike 2, hold short Mike 2, Atlanta. Once again, they know, okay, you're going to be heading towards 9er left on Lima and Mike 2, and you're going to be holding it in Mike 2 and doing setup, preparing for takeoff. Then it was the takeoff announcement. That way, again, they know you're taking off on that runway. Similarly, if there was anyone else, they would be making call-outs on it. Thing is, with VATSIM, that is currently on a trial only for the United States. They are working to expand it to other nations as well. That way you get a lot of the traffic off of Unicom, but not everyone realizes that. As a result, a lot of people still do their call-outs on Unicom. The best thing you can do then, if you can't tell for sure what frequency somebody is actually on, the best thing you can do is set your secondary radio to Unicom, and primary radio to CTAF, because, well, everyone should be on CTAF. That way you can call out to CTAF, the one that everyone is going to be on, or at least they should be, and then you turn this guy on to receive on Unicom. Turn that back off. But once you go over to Unicom, you disable that button. Otherwise, anytime somebody makes a call, including yourself, on Unicom, you will hear it if that is on. And that's the reason you want that guy turned on while you're on the ground at an uncontrolled airport. You want that guy turned on so you can hear those guys that are actually on Unicom making their call-outs. So, that's one hell of a tailwind. We got 79 knots of tailwind. This is kind of interesting since we're actually heading north currently. I was actually expecting us to be heading a bit more north at this point. Still heading mostly east. So we are getting a good boost out of the jet stream currently. Something I may end up doing, and if some of these do happen, we may end up seeing them as group flights with some of my friends. There may be, especially if we do get anything in the Atlantic here over the next few weeks, there may be streams with something like the P-8 Poseidon, which, while the P-8 Poseidon, it's not actually an airplane that you can truly get for Microsoft Flight Sim. You can't even truly get the P-3 Orion that we use for this purpose, but I do use it a lot for Hurricane Hunter type activities. The P-8 Poseidon, what it actually is, it's actually a special USN livery for the 737-800. It's actually for the freighter variant of this. I will probably at some point do a freighter variant flight as well. Probably going to first fly it out of the airport I currently have it set up as being in. And the one I've currently got set up for is, I believe it's an Amazon one. I don't know the specific carrier, so I'm going to try to look that up. That way I can get the correct call sign for that one. Alright, so we are at Tango Yankee India. I'm going to reset position and turn on track IR so that I can shift around a little bit easier. Still have a ways to go and cruise. So we are just under 240 nautical miles from top of the sun. I like to keep track of that, that way I can know, because basically what you should end up doing with a plane like this, since we are carrying passengers, I do believe I can look that up. Stop doing that track IR. Nope, we can't. Actually, no, we can't. I'm not going to change our passenger count here. We have 10 in first class to 126 in economy. We also have some cargo for those passengers in the cargo compartments, which to be expected. So currently we're heading direct to Guild. Hello! How are you doing here today, Echo? Earlier than I was hoping for with the time when I changed the time setting. I might have to God mode it a little later, because I do want to get it to being a good twilight landing. And that's about the only place I'm breaking the realism here tonight, is just God moding the time. This airframe, I'm probably going to do a few streams where I God mode the time with this. Just thanks to my schedule, just so I can get a little bit of the actual livery in. But for the most part, a lot of the flights I'll end up doing will be real time. So we got a long way before top of descent, but before we even get there, I want to grab bottom of descent, which will be, so because we're going to need to preset that. So there's bottom of descent is already preset. The reason I'm able to do that and not actually have it start descending here is we are on VNAV, so the autopilot is actually controlling our altitude, but it's not, that's also controlling the vertical speed. So it's actually pre-programmed with what it wants the altitude to be at certain waypoints. So it's going to set an appropriate vertical speed at a given point for maintaining an optimum fuel burn as well as maintaining the altitude at those points. So that's why, as you might have seen earlier, I did preset a couple of waypoints with different altitudes than what were already programmed. So you might see me look off to the left or to the right every now and then. I do actually use 3 monitor setup. I'm working on getting a 4th. The off to the right, I currently have Navigraph up, so that's where I'm taking a look at certain things like what are my minimums, what's the ILS, what's my bomb of descent. I'm looking up things like that over there. Off to the right, I've currently got, or off to the left actually, I've got VPilot, which is where I'm grabbing CTAF frequencies from. I'm also trying to maintain a watch to make sure that there's not a controller that comes online that doesn't just contact me. They should contact me if they come online, though. Also, every now and then bring up the VATSIM map, just to see if anyone does actually come online, as I'm still not expecting them to come online here tonight, and as of yet, nobody has. Okay, that's a fairly interesting one, sir. I just looked at it. There potentially could be some traffic into JFK. There's a flight, I don't know that airline's Papa Alpha Alpha 66 Heavy. It's a 747. It might be a Dash 100. It's an interesting one, but it's at Dulles on the ground currently on the network. And they're heading to Kennedy as well. Beyond that, there's nobody else, I believe, that should be of any concern to us. I can't actually having difficulty getting them because there's also a British Airways flight. And there's a lot of traffic out of Newark currently. There's also somebody in the air over England. Actually, it might not even be out in the air yet. They might be on the ground. Yep, 777 American 107 Heavy. On the ground at Heathrow going to Kennedy. I found the other one. It's Lufthansa 747-800 on the ground at Frankfurt. So yeah, nobody else on the network will be a traffic concern for us tonight. Other than that single 747 on the ground at Dulles. Weather's not a concern. We are using real-world weather currently. I'm actually going to grab the actual METAR currently for Kennedy. Altimeter setting is 3009er. Humidity is 55%. Temperature is 59 degrees with a dew point of 43. Visibility is 10 statute miles. The winds are 320 at 7. Which is perfect. 6 knots of headwind, which is what we want. 3 knots of crosswind. I'm glad we got out of Atlanta when we did, because our originally planned runway is now closed back there. But that is something we can disregard. So we're expecting about another half hour of flight time here. I need to work on getting rid of some of the built-in UI here from Flight Sim. But we are now currently over Norfolk. We'll actually go back to an exterior camera for now. Actually, I'm going to use some of these showcase cameras, which are kind of fun. As we look out over Norfolk down there. Barely see the naval base right on the bottom edge of the camera, about to be going under the number 2 engine. Atlantic Ocean in sight off the starboard side as well. Better view of Norfolk, actually. Wow. I've not gone through all of these different external cameras before. Wish that camera was pointed the other way. But yeah, PMDG did a very good job with this particular airframe. It's a very amazing one. I have to look up who actually made this particular livery. I have to do that on my other monitor real quick. So I do have... Let's see, with Delta. I do have like Flight Sim TO open. This is the Delta Concept PMDG Boeing 737-800 by Baker's 1771. Silly ads. It's one of those you kind of have to either love it or hate it. Air liveries. Oh, I'm not too irked by it. It's not a very realistic one for Delta. Delta is not a very flashy airline. They're your premium airline. They want their draw not to be the color of the plane or the livery of the plane. They want it to be, here's the experience we can give you. This is a 737-800, so this is an NGX, not a MAX. Yes, so PMDG makes a beautiful plane. We are actually... see, where's our top of descent right now? It's the 160 nautical mile markers. That's going to be approaching 80 nautical. As we get a little bit closer, we're going to actually we will go ahead and get our first VREF here. VREF will be 139 expected. Actually, we can come here as well. actually find what I was looking for, but... yeah, we're not going to worry about it. Well, let's go back over here. Okay, good. We are starting to get a twilight. That's what I was hoping for here. So yeah, this one I'll probably end up doing at least every Sunday, typically at sometime around 2 a.m. Flying this particular airframe for a while. I will begin the process of getting this airframe's next flight ready. Once we after we hit the ground, probably not do it here tonight. I do know the next stop for this one will be Raleigh, in the Delta Focus City. The nice part about this one, unlike the last time I flew this arrival that we're going to be going on soon, is last time I flew this, I did have ATC. Since I did have ATC with that one, I actually did have... well, and actually, that one, I don't mind ATC, it's just that it just also happened to be the first time I had ATC on VATSIM. So that's not the easiest thing to deal with. It's an added little stress that you just kind of have to get over at that point. So I'm actually getting my star map chart up, since we're starting to get close. We are currently over, I believe, I think this is the Delmarva Peninsula we might be over. I'd have to look it up. But we are over part of Virginia. Going to be crossing into, I believe, Maryland. We are less than 200 nautical miles from Kennedy. I'm going to go to ZJ soon. As you can see there, correct Calda, and then it's ZJ. And we quickly are approaching our top of descent. I'm not going to turn on these seatbelt lights just yet, because that's going to be the one thing we do have to do before we begin descent. Luckily, I don't see a need to change our actual planned runway. 31 right is still the active runway for arrivals at Kennedy. Would have preferred 31 left, or I believe it's 4 left. Just because that's going to make it easier to taxi to Terminal 4. But we'll be taking 31 right, which will be a fairly easy one to transition to. Beisel's next up, then Rads, and then Sea Isle, which will begin our transition. So with this descent that's upcoming, what I'm probably going to do, we do have to be at 250 knots at Cameron. Once we're through 10,000, we'll be going to 240 knots. I will be personally lowering the speeds myself unless ATC comes online, in which case we'll be doing assigned airspeeds. We'll be, in our descent, we'll be starting at Mach, I believe, 7.8. Yeah, 7.81 for top of the descent. And then I will actually be deciding we'll be speeding up to 300 knots and then intercept that and walk it back from there to 250. Since we have no speed restrictions. If we had speed restrictions, I'd be walking it back to those restrictions and maintaining those restrictions through those waypoints. By Cameron, I will have us to 250. It will be a relatively slow process. I'm going to arm the spoiler, because we will be needing that at times. So for those of you who do not fully know, I am using track IR. That's why you do see a lot of movement left to right, just at any given time. I'm flying this on a Logitech GX56 HOTAS. I do not actually have rudders or a yoke, but I do have a stick and throttle. Any typing I'm doing that's not on the FMC is being done with my regular keyboard. I use a mechanical keyboard from Corsair. Beyond that, again, this is the PMDG 737-800. I do have Navigraph charts, which I've shown a couple of times here. We are also using Volanta to track this flight. And this is on the VATSIM network through using the Microsoft Flight Simulator. Final waypoint before top of descent is RADS. You should see RADS on the map there momentarily, and there it is. I'm hoping to do a lot more of these streams here as we go through. There'll also be other games that I do stream a lot of, or I do start streaming, but I'm going to try to do a lot more streams with any of these flights I do in Flight Simulator. It's just any of the group flights I might not do as much talking, because those will likely be done with some Discord, because some of the guys I do fly with do not actually do this on the VATSIM network. One of the guys I do fly with is on the VATSIM network, so we might, if I do group flights with just him, we might drop out of Discord for that. I don't fully know. If we do, that makes it a little bit easier, because I can use push to talk for that a lot easier. Otherwise, I have to find a push to talk on this HOTAS that's not being used by something else. I'll probably have to do that regardless. I'll have to look up what all the keybinds on this are. Alright. I'm going to go speed intervention, maintain 7.8, Mach 0.78. I'll hopefully get a few of these with ATC. Hopefully, if I get some opportunities when there's maybe not as many people at home, probably try and do some flights earlier in the day when I'm not working. Unfortunately, that could be very difficult some days. Now we're going to turn direct sea aisle and begin our descent. So with speed intervention, this will maintain our whichever speed I set it for indicated airspeed or Mach number. I will change it over to from Mach number 2 indicated airspeed. Once our indicated airspeed hits 300 knots, or at least actually when the purple little block arrow you can see on our indicator airspeed does. And now comes the descent. This will not have any impact on our vertical speed. I'm not actually doing anything with the vertical speed here. This vertical speed will still be controlled by the flight computer. And then for anyone who is watching this after the fact, because I will be putting these all to YouTube afterwards, these videos will be full flights. They are going to be live streamed on Twitch. So just keep an eye out over there. Again, as I said, they are full flights. There is no editing for anyone watching after the fact. Still 3009er for the altimeter, which is what I've got preset. Once we're on the ground, I will turn on APU. But first, once we get through, so from here, once we're through flight level 180, we'll be switching from standard pressure to local. Since we don't have ATC to give us local altimeter, we'll be using the METAR at Kennedy. I'm not going to grab any of the other local METARs, because really the one at Kennedy is going to be the important one here. And then once we get to 10,000 feet, we'll be turning on landing, runway turnoff, and logo lights. Also going to, at this point, just say screw it and bring down our HUD. Because as I said, I don't know if you guys have caught it, because again, I did have a glitched STREAMLABS earlier, not broadcasting audio. We will be hand flying the actual arrival. Turning direct boat home. Basically, we're going to skirt along the Jersey Shore. So off to our left here, we will be having states of Delaware, New Jersey, and Maryland, as well as Pennsylvania. We also will have basically right off our nose and off to the right will be the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so we do have the 747 we have to keep an eye out for. We're not going to be able to see them at this distance. They'll be off to the left. Come back down here. Because they have already taken off from Dulles, which is off to our left. Where we should get fix? Zulab. So we should get our full fix at Zulab. Beautiful arrival here. I love these kind of Twilight type flights. I did one where it was accidentally Twilight. It was a group flight with a guy not in VATSIM who didn't realize it, but he did not have real-time turned on. So it was actually sunrise as we were doing a flight from Atlanta to Cincinnati. I'm actually going to Walk back our speed to 290 knots indicated. So keep in mind, Volanta is not going to use indicated airspeed. That will actually be our ground speed, which is going to be significantly faster than what I'm currently setting it to. Through 230 now. Okay. Well, we want U-arm still. We do have auto brake set to 3, which is desired. Let's turn on the compass light. Going through Botone, we'll go ahead and decrease speed to 280. Now, if we did not have a speed restriction before 10,000 feet, I would consider maintaining 280 all the way through 10,000. But I also like to do step decelerations like this if I'm not in controlled airspace and there's not a lot of traffic to be concerned with. Big reason for that is I don't like those like sharp decelerations going from 280 to 250 or 300 to 250 like that. If I'm able to go, say, take 50 miles to slow down, I'd rather do it. Next speed will be 270 by Pansy. We'll be going through flight level 180 at Hogs, then it's on to Pansy. Slow to 270 by Pansy. Going to local altimeter. After Pansy is Cars. Once we get DME picked up, which will be the first thing we pick up from the ILS, we will be switching over to CTAF and beginning to make calls. Okay, we need to continue slow. Cars. So we're just going through Pansy now. We'll go down to 260 by Cars. And then Cameron's the hard restriction. We have to be at 250 at Cameron. At which point we will also go to Flaps 5. And also begin our transition over to arrival. We're over to the ILS. Alright. Time to turn direct Cameron. Slows down to 250 knots. So we are now less than 50 miles from the airport. Reported winds per both HOTAS and METAR are currently 6 knot headwind for 3-1 right plus 3 knots of crosswind from the right. So preferentially we'd have a little bit more of a direct headwind. Advantage to a headwind is you get more lift, so you can actually make the approach at a slower speed. Winds are not VRFAD. Don't want that. Import winds. We're current winds per the METAR are 320 at 4. At least I don't have a glitched one this time, because I had it once where it was saying 380 at some random speed. Alright, time to go through 11,000. We're going to switch over. I'm going to switch my chart on this other screen. Just showing the. And we're going to have a loading hiccup. Come on. VATSIM, you can do it. There we go. As we now have to start loading all the assets for New York. Actually, no, we're going to maintain 250 for now. Go flaps 5. So the reason we're going flaps 5 already, if we look here right underneath the landing gear, the limits for indicated airspeed for the landing gear, you can extend them at up to 270 knots or Mach 0.82. We can retract them up to 235 knots. And while extended, we cannot exceed 320 knots or Mach 0.82. We also have underneath that limits for different airspeeds for the different flaps settings. So as we now go through 10,000 feet, landing lights will come on, runway turnoffs on, and logo light will come on. Now we're through Cameron, we'll slow to 240. Once we're at KATL, actually before we even get to KATL, I'm going to start slowing this down a bit. Goals we get 210 knots with flaps at 10 as we begin turning on to final. We'll have an 11 nautical mile. We'll have an 11-mile final at KATL. We should pick up DME momentarily. Well, soon. Usually pick it up somewhere between 20 and 30 miles. And we are just over 30 nautical miles from the airport. A little bit later than I was hoping. We're still getting a good landing here. Looks good up top. Triple 1.5. Yep, good deal. Existing triple 1.5, which I want to see. I'm also going to switch this to approach, and this to approach. And we should start seeing these things start these three screens here beneath us start changing, as well as the HUD. We should see a DME start showing up as not dashes. We should start seeing the localizer and glide slope markers on both the left as well as that little center guy that I hit approach on. Also should start seeing indicators up here on the HUD. And we should see a big pink line show up in the middle of that gap as we start picking up the ILS. 23 nautical miles to airport. Slow us to 210, go flaps, prepare to go flaps 10. Just arm the spoiler, we don't need that fully deployed. So we're not going to get a good pickup of the ILS before we get there. Is marking it as the correct ILS notice, so it is saying it's Earth, which is correct. There we go, there's DME. So we'll switch over. And as you can see, we do have that little pink bar showing up now. Kennedy traffic Delta 801 on approach for runway 31 right, Kennedy. And I'm actually going to turn on the other radio so we can hear Unicom calls. Go flaps 10. We're actually getting pretty close to KATL. We're actually going to turn on the localizer mode as well here. We'll probably end up picking up the full localizer before we actually get to ZooLab, which is the actual location where the chart wants you to pick it up. Will be established before then, but we shall see, and we will begin preparing to slow down even more. Goals be at 3,000 feet at KATL. We're going to have a bit of descending to do. Do you have the field in sight? Oh, well, that's not the field. There's the field off to the left. Field is in sight. As you can tell, our DME is about where it should be for the we are using a VOR at the airport. You can also see LaGuardia, which is another airport we will be flying into out in the distance. Try to put on a good landing here once we get on final. Here we go, turning base. Kennedy traffic, Delta 801, turning base, runway 31 right, Kennedy. So I'm gonna let autopilot go approach mode. Let autopilot take us into about a 5-mile final. Make a 5-mile final call out, and then I'll disable autopilot for the final approach. So we are now fully established. We're going to slow to 180, drop gear. Kennedy traffic, Delta 801 on 10-mile final for runway 31 right, Kennedy. Dropping our gear, we're going to go flaps 25. We'll slow a bit further in the next couple of miles. Altimeter needs to be adjusted just a hair.
2,500.
139 will be our VREF. Flaps 30. We'll slow it to 150. Flaps full. Alright. Let it correct that little bump from the flaps. Kennedy traffic, Delta 801 on 5-mile final for runway 31 right, Kennedy. Alarms. Throttle is ours, as are the controls. landing as we get on final here. Oh, there's another rendering. Kennedy at least is not too bad for rendering, from what I've experienced, at least in the past. I do have GPWS set up to give us all the calls, but I'll go sterile cockpit as I go on this final approach here.
Approaching minimums. 200. Minimums. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Two in reverse. 60 knots, reversers disengage. We will actually take this high-speed exit off to the left. That was not a bad landing, actually. Let's see what, can't tell what taxiway this is, sadly. Kennedy traffic, Delta 801, clear of runway 31 right, Kennedy. So we'll go those off. Alright, so we will work on getting ourselves oriented and do a couple of quick things. I'm zooming in on Navigraph to find which taxiway this is. This is Delta. We're also going to start turning on taxi lights, turn off the runway turn-offs, turn off landing, strobe off, APU to on, Max can go off. Alright, what gates are available over at Terminal 4I-AT? Well, I don't want to go anything south of Gate 41 because there's no no jetways there. I think we're going to go with Gate 35. Get the APU generators on first. So it'll be Delta Alpha around. So we'll make our call out. Delta Alpha, Hotel Bravo. Kennedy traffic, Delta 801, taxiing to Gate 33 via Delta Alpha, Hotel Bravo. Kennedy. Alright, so let's begin taxi. That was fun. We were actually blocking a taxiway, but nobody needed Bravo. Turn left here onto Alpha. Don't expect to have a marshaller, sadly, because I did not tell it where we're going to be parking. At least did not tell the sim where we're going to be parking. So other games you may end up seeing here in the near future for live streams, there may be some Tower Simulator as well. I've been enjoying a little bit of time in that. Hoping to do my first stream is with that actually being a multiplayer stream. Don't know how that will end up going. Also probably produce a little bit of storm chasing. Lately, the guys I chase with, we've been doing storm chasing through Twisted primarily, which is a Roblox game. Quite enjoyable. Next up is Golf, then it's Hotel, and then Hotel Bravo. So we just passed Golf. Next right is Hotel. There is Terminal 4. A lot of those are heavy gates for heavy wide bodies like the 767, A330, and A350 primarily, because these are the Delta gates. Kennedy is the New York airport for that Delta does a lot of their East Coast international departures out of, especially for New York. Delta does fly into all three airports in the New York area, at least the three majors, so Newark, Kennedy, and LaGuardia. We will be flying into LaGuardia in this airframe at a later date. That is not the next leg for what I'm doing here. Next leg will end up being to Raleigh. Then I'm going to try and get us a good parking job here. Hopefully we get a jetway. Yeah, see, there's your first jetway. That is, I believe, gate 41, which is a heavy. I could park it at a heavy gate, but I'm not going to. I decided to park it at one of the the narrow body gates, which is up this way a bit further. There are 3 heavies, and then the second wide body, or narrow body, is ours. So it should be that one right there. We do have a jetway. Perfect. We do have VATSIM traffic over that way. I don't know who that is because I don't have one of the map, or I don't have the map up currently. Let's actually go external just to get a good parking job. It helps if I remember to disable track IR so I can fine tune everything. Yep, that's our gate here. Initially, we had markings just to tell. Maybe we should pull up 2. Pull up a little bit further. I have a couple other settings I need to adjust in the cockpit, but I'm gonna get us a good parking job here. Parking brake is on. Let's come in here. Let's go. We don't need that anymore. Radar off. Graphic off. You can disable taxi light at this point. Go down here, menu, ground services. We're actually going to go engines. Shut down on left and right engines here. Set the chocks. Let's get our jetway. Hell yeah, it's gonna work. Logo light will come off position. We'll leave that on for now. I'm gonna do a little bit of cleanup before fully shutting down. Now, if we were doing another flight here tonight, I would leave the logo light on. I am, for the hell of it, even though I don't actually expect to be online long enough to fully unload. I'm going to pretend we can try and get as many of these 136 passengers offline. Off the plane, just to keep with the realism. Start deplane. Okay, so we're gonna come in and go a bit further here. We don't actually need that panel anymore. APU is still on. Go to ground power, APU will come off. We'll go fuel pumps off. Hydraulic pumps off. ARS will come off as well. Disable that. Anything else I can clean up at this point? The reason I'm asking myself if there's anything else to clean up here is, fasten seatbelt signs can come off. No smoking can go off as well, because, well, nobody's going to be on board. Unguard emergency exits and batteries here. And I think we are, at this point, good to finish shutdown here and go cold and dark. I'm going to turn the battery off. Emergency exit, and I'll just at least keep the ground power on for long enough to actually finally turn these guys off. Now, some of those I'd leave on, like those three on the right, I would have left on if I was going to be doing another flight. Essentially, if I was going to be doing another flight, I would at this point be disconnecting from VATSIM with the IRS and those three lights left on. Everything else I would just have in essentially the state we're in right now. I would disconnect from VATSIM, pre-file my new flight plan, get it loaded up on the plane here, reconnect to VATSIM with the new flight number, and I would not be going to full cold and dark like we are right now. But yeah, there we go. So that is the beginning of the, probably, as of right now, it's the most ambitious thing I'm fully planning to do. As I said, if I was trying to do this before the next sim comes out, I would have this already, we'd be already out to the West Coast. I don't necessarily expect to complete this particular tour before 2024 comes out, but we'll sure as hell try. This plane, the conceptual Delta 737-800, will only be flown here on stream. As of right now, I don't have a lot of plans for it other than this just going from one, and I left, damn it. I left the flaps again. Okay, ground power, where are you? I have to go hydraulics. I did this last night too. But yeah, if I was going to be doing another flight here tonight with this airframe, we would be just a little bit of a different configuration. I would actually give it the full time to deplane everything, but we'd also be keeping electric power through ground power through that. Ooh, we do have an arrival. That's going to be the 7-4. Our flaps are still in transit. I wonder if they're talking on a Unicom or CTAF, so I'll turn on the Unicom for now. I just want to see how they're doing. They're on the ground. Turn that back on just so we can guarantee that we hear them. Spree brake is also disarmed. Good. At this point I'm not actually bothering with the track arrow as much as I'd like to use it. So with the track arrow, I did actually get it primarily for a completely different simulator. So I got the track IR originally for DCS World. I used to do a lot of flying in DCS. I'm not doing a lot of that now. But I do use it here every now and then. Don't care about fuel, because we have 15% fuel. We're not going anywhere. This handful of passengers will be disembarking. I was hoping to hear him. Guess we're not gonna get a call from him. Okay. But yeah, that's the thing with the uncontrolled airspace. Can be a bit hectic, just since again there's nobody actually telling anyone what to do. But you should be addressing that. You should be giving advisory callouts, such as where you're taxiing to and from, that you're clear of the runway. You should also be doing all this, telling everyone that you are landing and which runway you are landing on. Which can be very important because one of the group flights I did from LAX to Seattle, well, the easiest way to put that there was I got out of Seattle just fine because while everyone was making at that point, everyone was making the appropriate call-outs. But as soon as my friend, who was also on that flight, was in the process of his, there was a little bit of chaos. A lot of noise now. Let's see if we can't go figure out who that is. Use the... if I can get the camera drone to work properly. Oops, I'm on the right thing. Camera drone, please. Oops, helps if I hit the right buttons. Because I'm kind of curious who that 7-4 is. Oh, wrong way. Also gonna finally change our time to a little bit more. And now they're silent. Wow. Of course we're not going to be able to figure out who that is. Oh well. But yeah, here we are at Kennedy's. This is actually the, again, as I mentioned previously, this is the basic scenery for Kennedy. It is a handcrafted airport by Asobo. There are pretty sure there are other sceneries you can get, although handcrafted is usually going to be the best. We do have, at least in VATSIM, we have one other guy here. That would be a Qatar. That looks to be a 777. Let's see. Qatar 2 Bravo, 777-300. They're heading to OTTH, or OTHH. They're heading to Hamad International in Qatar, to be expected for a Qatari flight. The only other people on the ground are going to be us over here. With our kind of interesting little 7-3. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and head on out here. We will be doing another flight. If I don't do another flight with this airframe on Tuesday, or otherwise later this week, we will be doing another one on Sunday, sometime after 2 a.m. Again, that's going to be actually Monday 2 a.m. I say Sunday because that's just the day it is to me at that point. So yeah, we'll do this, at least, if at the latest, we'll do this next flight, which will be to Raleigh, from here to Raleigh, in 1 week's time. Might do it a little bit sooner. We will be returning after that Raleigh flight. We will be returning to New York. That although yet for LaGuardia, not for Kennedy. So hopefully everyone did enjoy that flight. Next time there won't be the crazy weirdness with the audio, luckily, because we've already got that sorted out. Yeah, I will see you guys next time. We will have more flights to come as well as some more games.